I was Ferris Bueller. When I saw that movie, I said, this is my life story right here. I had everybody in the school covering for me on everything I did. Nobody would beat me up, because if a guy was mad at me and was going to beat me up, I would say, okay, look, you outweigh me by 100 pounds. You're a football player. And you're trying to get a date with that cheerleader, right? Yeah. Would you rather beat me up or go out with a cheerleader? Oh, cheerleader. Okay, I'll arrange it. So I loved school. I didn't like the work. I liked the things I was good at. I was good at journalism. I was good at art, phys ed, things like that. I had absolutely no use for algebra, chemistry, biology, any of the sciences at all. I just wasn't part of that. But anything to do with words, English I was very good at. So I just did well in what I was good at. I was at the perfect age. I was 15, and the Beatles came out. Of course, I loved the Beach Boys. I loved the Four Seasons and Elvis. Everybody loved Elvis. I never had any intentions of ever being in a band. Nobody did. The only bands that we had were surf bands, And so when we saw the Beatles, immediately I went, oh, I would like to do that. That would be fun to do. Of course, I never thought I would ever meet the Beatles and be in competition with the Beatles, actually be at their house, things like that were never even in a scope of imagination. But we put a little band together. I learned how to sing a couple Beatles songs, and one guy learned how to play guitar, one guy learned to play bass, and pretty soon we were playing parties. And that was basically how we just didn't want to work at Safeway. That was basically it. We didn't want to work at the car wash or Safeway. We wanted to be in a little band, because first of all, girls were going to like that. It gave us an excuse to grow our hair a little bit. And, it was just we were the perfect age for it. The Beatles were the influence. And then we saw the Stones. And then we saw the Kinks. And then we saw the Yardbirds. And, so, we just kept progressing along with all these bands that kept coming out. And pretty soon, we went through rock music 101 by learning everything by Chuck Berry, everything by the Beatles and the Stones, and then we moved on and realized that what we really liked was the Yardbirds. That was our band. That was the Yardbirds and the Who, a combination of those two groups. And that's really was the basis, even to now, of Alice Cooper, is still that sort of experimental hard rock. My dad was very much for the band. He used to help make our backdrops. When we were the Spiders, he made a big web for us and everything. My dad was very much into music. He could tell you who played bass for the Animals, things like that, Even though he was a preacher, he didn't really think that rock and roll and religion were at odds with each other. I think what goes with it, if you're talking about drugs and a lot of free sex, no, certainly wasn't into that. But the music, which was the innocent part of it, I think, he was very much a part of it. The one thing that we didn't want was a name that sounded violent. We wanted something soft. We wanted something really nice and pleasing and kind of, oh, isn't that nice, And then they get us, because that was part of the shot. Alice Cooper totally came out of nowhere. I was sitting there at somebody's house at this other girl band that we were hanging out with, and we were talking about names, and 100 names came up, and I said, what if it was just like Alice Cooper, like a little old lady? And it stuck. By about 2 hours later, people kept saying Alice Cooper, Alice Cooper, Alice. Pretty soon it was a nice flow. And then I realized later on, Baby Jane, Lizzie Borden, Alice Cooper. It had a rhythm to it. It had this kind of little macabre sound to it. So it worked. They loved the bizarreness of the band because we were from Arizona, of all places. We were called Alice Cooper. And there was nobody in the band that was gay. We wore this horrible, whatever happened to Baby Jane makeup, we just smeared on. It wasn't put on nice at all. We were wearing these women's clothes, sort of. It was kind of like women's clothes, but it wasn't. We just didn't fit into any Los Angeles band formula at all. We were the first glam band, and the attitude was violent, which even made it weirder, the fact that we didn't mind choreographed violence on stage. I didn't like real violence, but choreographed violence was fine. You know, I didn't mind a little blood on stage. I didn't mind this. So all of that put together, really, it was a package that was really hard to swallow for that time. And the only bands that really liked us were the Doors. The Doors liked us. The Chambers Brothers liked us. The Mothers. You know, those were the bands that said, yeah, we like these guys. We're putting them under our wings, sort of. We didn't know how to write. What came out was really odd. It didn't have any connection to anything. In fact, our best compliment I think we ever got was Frank Zappa saw us play one time. And we did these, you know, all the songs from Pretty's for You, which they were like a 1.5-minute songs with 50 changes in it. And he says, Alice, I wouldn't know how to write this song for the Mothers. I wouldn't know how to, like, score it, because it doesn't make any sense at all. I said, that's good, isn't it? And he says, yeah, it's good. He says, but it's just, I don't know what it is, you know. And I said, well, that's us. You know, that's what we are. They hated us. We were anti-hippie. We were anti-peace and love. We were anti-everything. We were probably pro-war. We were probably let's win this war, Vietnam kind of guys, you know. We just didn't fit in. And we got offered a job in Detroit. Somebody with a little insight who had seen us thought, this band would be good in Detroit because they've got that. You know, they're a rock and roll band. We were not a psychedelic band. We were a rock and roll band. We did have some psychedelic to it, but it was more ballsy than that. We got to Detroit and we played this big outdoor festival with the Stooges, Iggy and the Stooges, who I'd never heard of before. And I was fascinated by these guys. I went, wow, who are these guys? Because we dug them. We thought they were great. And the MC5, all these really good hard rock bands. I said, man, we're right at home here. This is our kind of thing. And we went and took the stage. And it was like the producers. It was like Springtime for Hitler. You know, it was like, and then, yeah, because they got it. And even, you know, Iggy was finally found some competition, you know. And I always looked at Iggy as being competition because I really admired what he did. He was the one guy I didn't want to go on after. To this day, he's the one guy I don't want to go on after because he's so good. He wears the audience out. And now, in those days, I mean, he'd like, you know, he was so unpredictable. And we got to be quite good friends, actually, you know. But that's why Detroit was home for us, because we really fit into that hard rock garage world. First of all, the only reason that we were even on that show was because our manager helped produce the show. And part of, he said, I don't want to get paid, I just want my band to play at a nice spot. We played between the Doors and John Lennon. 60,000 people in Toronto. And there's all these great bands. The Doors went on, and then we went on, and then John Lennon went on. So we're up there, and we're doing the whole thing, and we're doing, at the very end of the show, we used to open up pillows. One feather pillow will fill Madison Square Garden with a CO2 cartridge to blow it to make it. We had about 6 that night. It looked like a snowstorm going in there. And right in the middle of it, all of a sudden, I see this, somebody throws a chicken out of the audience. Now, it never occurred to me, to this day, I keep going, who would bring a chicken to the show anyways, to start with? You know, anyways, now there's this chicken on stage. I'm from Detroit, you know, I was born in Detroit. Never been on a farm in my life. It was a bird. It had feathers. Well, I'll throw it back, it'll fly away. I didn't know they couldn't fly. You know, I threw it back in the audience. I didn't even throw it, I just kind of put it back in the audience. It didn't fly as much as it plummeted into the audience, and they tore it to pieces. Next thing is Alice Cooper rips head off chicken, drinks the blood. I get a call from Frank Zappa the next day. And he says, did you kill a chicken on stage last night? I said, no. And he says, well, don't tell anybody. They love it. He says, it's the biggest news back here. He says, you're this new horrible thing, you know. And I said, okay. He says, just don't deny it, you know. So that was the legend of the chicken. I would never have hurt any animal. I was just, you know. But the funny thing was about that show was here we were. in the middle of all this insanity and the noise. It's white noise at this point. It's just pulsing white noise with all this white. And I look over to the right, and there's John Lennon standing there. And I look to the left, and there's Jim Morrison. They're both going, yeah. And I went, okay, we got something. It was a blur because we could not believe that we were on the cover of every magazine. We couldn't believe we were on the cover of Rolling Stone. We couldn't believe. We still didn't. We kept going. They're not quite getting this, you know, or they wouldn't have us here. They're not. They don't understand. You know. I remember we started in a garage, just trying to get enough money to buy an amp. The next thing you know, we're the biggest thing. I think it was just we were at the exact right place at the right time with the right thing, and I think that's how everything. I think the same with the Beatles. The Beatles came out at exactly the right time, when there needed to be a revolution in music. We came out right when people were so tired of the hippie thing. What was next? What was next was excess. Some decadent band like us screaming about, I want Ferraris, I want blondes, I want switchblades. And everybody went, yeah, I do too. I want money. We were really honest about that. Yes. We had a string of big records in a row. And to me, the next step was Welcome to My Nightmare. It was to make Billion Dollar Babies look like a stepping stone to the next real show. Billion Dollar Babies was also already touted as the biggest rock spectacle that had ever been seen on stage. And my idea was to take it to the next step and make Nightmare even better. The band saw it totally different. The band suddenly went, let's go the other way. Let's now prove that we're great musicians. Let's be Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Let's be the Pink Floyd. Let's be this. And I'm looking and I'm going, what? It was like I was standing with my jaw dropping going, you are kidding me. Is this April Fool's Day? Because that can't be right. And I said, everybody wants to be us. We won. We won this big war. Well, I think we could just wear Levi's. And I'm sitting there going, this is a bad dream. And I said, guys, I can't do that. I said, I've got to go the other way. And we never ended on any bad yelling, screaming. We never did that. They all went off and they wanted to do their own albums. And Shep and I and Bob Ezrin went on and did Welcome to My Nightmare, which became the biggest show. Scariest night of my life. And any level was the first night that I put on the Alice Cooper outfit without alcohol. Because I had never done it before. Through all the success, it always had part of the formula was drinking. So all of a sudden now, I'm in Santa Barbara. The Guns N' Roses are opening for us. And I've got the makeup on and everything, and I'm going, what if I step out there and Alice doesn't show up? Boy, I am going to just I'll walk off the stage. So there, I think I must have walked 100 miles that day in my hotel room, just scared to death. And as soon as I hit the stage, it was a new Alice. All of a sudden, the Alice that we had before was a victim. He was always hunched over a little bit. He was always getting hung, and for no apparent reason. He was always getting beat up and this and this, and he was a bit of a whipping post. All of a sudden, this new Alice was this, he was this arrogant dominatrix kind of character. And I don't know where it came from. All of a sudden, then I was like this, and it was, you're mine. And he had this new energy of I'm in control. You are not in control. You're at my show. And the audience loved it. He never said thank you. That would be beneath him. You know what I mean? He was more like Captain Hook now. Now he was more like, yes, you may come to my concert. I think that you could become an elder statesman. Even though I would put our show up against anybody at any time, the Marilyn Mansons, the Rob Zombies, we'd blow them all off the stage, And that's not ego. That's just I know. I know what the show is. I see the audience every night. I think what it is the fact that we were the first to do the theatrics, and we're still the best at it. Because I think we had a head start over everybody else. And we've always concentrated on making the lyrics come to life. If you say Brutal Planet, you better give them Brutal Planet. You better make them believe that they're on Brutal Planet. I think too many bands say, okay, here's a song called Crimson Death. And they play, Crimson Death, Crimson Death. And you go, okay, Crimson Death. Let me see it. I don't see it. All I hear, I just hear it. I want to see it. If you say Crimson Death, let me see it. Give it to me. So that's the one thing we've always done. We would never go on stage and just play. I think we've got to give the audience that. If I go down in history as anything, it'll be hopefully the father of not just shock rock, but